there, fellow knife friends. I've got a knife for you today. This is my first knife from Remette Knives. This is the budget variant of the Wild Species G10 14C28N liner lock, and of course the premium version is a titanium frame lock. Are you interested in, this is I'll call it a large size knife. What is it? 3 1/3 inches long, roughly. And we're going to do everything. We're going to do a teardown. We're going to talk about some problems that I find when I do the teardown, because I found something I didn't like that awful much, but it's not a major issue. Yeah, we'll see. And I'll tell you all about it. So stick around. Measurements that I do in-house. A lot of guys have been commenting recently, not a lot, but some, that that I just copy the sizes and stuff off a sheet and I read them off, and that's my video. I'm going, did you watch the whole thing? Yeah, probably they didn't. But I'm talking to you guys who have listened regularly. And those of you who haven't, I do a complete teardown on almost every video. I do a full set of measurements that I take myself in-house using, some high-end measuring equipment. I measure the sharpness of the knife, all kinds of stuff. So if you want to know pretty much anything there is to know about this knife, plus my opinions of it, stick around. We've got the full review coming right now. All right, here she is up close and personal. Oh, a little bit of dog hair right there. Stuck in there. Oh well. That's what gets that way. Yeah, Bandit's got this really fine hair, and so it gets into everything. Let's take a look. We got G10. Of course, this is the colorful one. This has got the orange liner, G10. Well, they're glued together. That's one piece. You can get it in the black, you can get it in the tan. Those are the 3 different ways that they sell the Wild Species in the budget version, the G10 version. If you don't know, there is a frame lock version, titanium frame lock with M390, I think, for the steel, for the blade. 189 bucks, something like that, roughly, give or take a little bit. I don't remember exactly. This guy, the G10 liner lock with 14C28N, this is a little bit less money at White Mountain Knives. They've got the green one and the black one, $49. You save 10% with my coupon code CCE. That makes it $44.10 US for this thing. It's about 60 Canadian right now at the end of September 2024. Exchange rate 1.35 to 1, something like that. So yeah, if you want that, you can also buy this on Amazon. Amazon's got it, Amazon USA Amazon's got this. $50, and they've got, I think, all 3 colors, 3 colorways. They've also got the Wild Species plus the Rhino, like for $84 or something in one unit. I'll leave links down below, referral links for Amazon, and White Mountain Knives is, of course, my coupon code. And if you want to buy it directly from Remette, I just got a link for them. There's no referral or affiliate or nothing on that. That's 55 bucks. Of course, made in China, just like most knives are these days, especially knives in this price range. Let's take a look at the details of it. We've got deployment on this thing. We've got thumb studs and a front flipper. Thumb stud placement for it is quite good, especially when the blade is deployed. You can cut through without stuff catching on that thumb stud, which is quite nice. The other deployment is this front flipper, but that's a ways away. That's more than an inch, which means you got to reach over, and there you go. I just find it a little awkward. I'm not fond of this front style flipper, like end flipper maybe, because some knives have a flipper here. And of course, the traditional flipper is over here. So 1, 2, 3. This is just a little further away than I prefer. Wouldn't mind if it was a little bit closer, but if it was closer, then we'd have to change where the pivot point is up and down so that, this could line up. It's okay. Like I said, 14C28, and we've got a satin finish on the flats. So they bead blasted the whole thing, and then they resanded the flats so that you've got nice sanded lines up there. And then Remette put their name up there on the flat, which is quite good. It's black and dark. I wouldn't mind if it was a tiny bit smaller, but that's not bad. And the placement's not bad either. And on this side, it says 14C28N. It's not quite as dark, the print on that, as Remette is on this side. It's okay. Not bad. Got a drop point with a swedge most of the way. And the swedge ends, centimeter, I don't know, 13 millimeters, 12 millimeters from the tip. half an inch from the tip, something like that. And so it's narrow up here, and it slowly gets thicker towards the tip, if you can see that right there. That's okay. I like the jimping back here, but if you're going to reach forward a little bit like this, you know, put your finger in line with the pivot, your thumb goes up here, and it's up on this narrow section, which I don't really like all that much. But just gripping a tiny bit further back, it's okay, because your thumb's on a little bit of this jimping, and it spreads out. This thumb stud's fairly close to the spine, and just sort of helps out a little bit. So that's okay. Drop point with a major belly, like the belly is quick, I mean, to transition to the straight section. So that section there is actually pretty good. It's nice and thin at the edge, maybe a little thinner than some people want. I'll give you all those measurements later on exactly. Thin edge, fairly well sharpened. It cuts pretty good. If you don't mind a bead blast finish on this edge, then there you go. I'm not a big fan of bead blast finish, but it doesn't annoy me as much as it did maybe even just a year ago or 2 years ago. I really disliked it then, but I've really not found, at least in my scenario where I live in south central Alberta, north of Calgary a bit, that I don't find that bead blast is creating more rust. I was concerned that bead blast finish might make the steel rust more easily, but I really haven't experienced that. So yeah, it's starting to grow on me a little bit. Of course, I prefer stonewash still over anything. And black wash, the black stonewash, I like a fair bit as well. I tend not to prefer coated blades, but this thing comes in this satin bead blast finish. What else about the blade shape? We don't have a special sharpener's choil, but we've got, you know, the grip here just transitions into a bit of a forward grip. So it's easy to sharpen this knife to the end without, you know, creating any funny looking spots, smiles, I guess a lot of people call it over here. Just well done. Well done indeed. What don't I like about this? Well, I already told you I don't like that front flipper. There's another thing that I'm not very fond of. It's not a big deal. It's pretty nitpicky, but the thumb studs here are quite smooth. And so I did find myself sometimes just slipping off of the thumb stud because there's nothing there to grip it. Well, there's a tiny little bit of a ledge. They're stainless steel thumb studs. They anodized it so it's blue on the surface, and there's a tiny bit of a ledge there. It really doesn't offer extra grip for a thumb stud, but the detent is dialed in quite well, and so it's not really a big deal. You'll get used to the knife pretty quickly for that thumb stud, the way it feels. So I don't mind that at all. Well, maybe not at all. I don't mind that much at all. At all? Just say it the way you think it, Jake. I don't really mind that it's smooth there, but I would prefer if there was a little bit of texture, a little more texture on that thumb stud. So, nitpicky. The handle's pretty big. We've got over 4 inches of handle here. We've got a big arch on the back, and we've got a bit of a separator right here. And I've been gripping it with my fingers behind, 3 fingers behind here, and the index finger, you know, ranges up here. If I go forward though, then it divides. You can see that orange point right there between the 2 fingers, and that fits. So not bad. So it's okay the way they've designed that. It's a little bit crisp on the edges. You know, it does come down here, so you can see this flat green here, and as you see the black in there, so they got different layers, black and green, black and green, black and green, black and green, and then down to orange. So it's coming down a little bit, but the edge itself, mostly here on the belly part of the handle, is a little bit crisper than I'd like. You could take some sandpaper and just sort of sand that round fairly easily. We've got liners in here. They're skeletonized somewhat. We'll take a look at that. It's not a very light knife. I'll tell you the measurements of that a little bit later. Back end of here, we've got a back spacer. We've got a lanyard hole that's inset, which is quite nice. The placement of this lanyard hole is really well done, but we've got a crisp edge on that orange G10, which made feeding paracord, a 550 paracord, a little bit annoying to get it through there. I didn't really like that. You could, again, use a round file or something, round that off a little bit, you know, when you've got it taken apart, or even, yeah, I would do it when I had it taken apart. Just round that G10 down a little bit, and back a little bit, just to make it a little easier if you like to use lanyards and change them every once in a while. If you're not going to change them very much, yeah, it's not a big deal at all. Show side here, we've got T6 screws. They're nice flush screws. I prefer flush screws. I'd prefer if these were T8s, but that's okay. Pivot pins, got a blue anodized titanium pivot collar on both sides. T8 right there. And then we've got the T6 pocket clip only on the right side. Holds in there quite well, didn't have a problem with that. I would like this tip to come out just a little bit further, because when I use it with my pocket, I didn't always have it, climb over. You can see it just barely reaches right there to climb over the edge. So the odd time, I dropped it in my pocket when I really wanted to do that. So it's not a deep carry clip. So if you prefer deep carry clips, oh well. And sticks out a little ways, not an awful long ways. I didn't measure that before. Let me pull out my ruler here and see. Yeah, not quite 5/8 of an inch. And what is that in millimeters? Yeah, 1.5 centimeters, 15 millimeters or so that it sticks out of the pocket. And then you've got the texture of those screws, which I liked for pulling it out of my pocket because that created a grip zone or grip area to pull on. There you go. It's a stainless steel pocket clip. Of course, the titanium version's got titanium, hardware as well. Well, maybe not the screws, but the pocket clip and stuff is titanium. Totally different pocket clip on the high-end version of this Wild Species. What else? Well, detent's quite good. I think I mentioned that before. Maybe I didn't. You can hear it. It's holding quite well. It's a fairly well dialed in detent. Blade alignment, it's slightly off onto the pocket clip side right here. Not far. It's not rubbing. It's not even close to rubbing, so not a problem. It's just slightly off. Not a big deal. Smooth action. We've got ceramic ball bearings. Decent, shutting action. Fairly smooth indeed. Lockup is quite good. Maybe it's a tiniest bit early from what I like. I like the, this side of the liner to match up with this side of the blade tang, so it's even. But it's not so early that it's a problem at all. And like I said, I showed you that cutaway there. There's a little chamfer on the side. Easy to disengage. Close the knife. Just, it works well. I like that. The action's quite good. So that's that. How well does it cut? We've got a high flat grind. Let's see, how long is that grind? Again, that's about 3/4 of an inch. That's almost 2 centimeters. Well, back here it probably is 2 centimeters of bevel going up to the thickness of the blade. The blade is slightly under 1/8 of an inch, and I'll give you the measurements later. It cuts quite well. I'm very happy with that, and didn't need to do anything to it. The sharpening on it's a little bit wonky, but it was quite good out of the box and not a problem. So that's most of that stuff. Let's take this thing apart and then we'll do the measurements. And maybe I'll even show all of that. Maybe I'll fast forward this part. Oh, one other thing as I do this, I just remembered. There's no thread locker on here, which means that if you want thread locker, you want to add that yourself. And you might want to add thread locker because the pivot screw was coming loose during use. And I mean, I didn't have to use it very long at all before the pivot screw started coming loose. So I like to put my own stuff in there. I like Vibratite VC3 Threadmate. It's not a thread locker and it's reusable. It's a little messy to put on. I've got a video about it. You can watch that if you want to. I'll link it up here in the corner and I'll link it down below. It just works really well. And especially if you like to take your knives apart often, once you've used it once, you don't have to reapply it for 7 times of taking the knife apart, taking that screw out. You just put it back in and it just holds again. It's an anti-vibration holder, so it stops the screw from vibrating and coming loose without locking it in place like a thread locker does. So it's much less risk of messing up and marring your screw head, especially if the screw heads don't match really well. Now this T8 is a really good fit. This is a good high-end T8 screwdriver. Not super high-end, but nice Wera made in Czech Republic screwdriver. You can get these. I've got links down below for those as well. Nice, really nice. Now the T6s over here, a little bit more play in them, but not bad. And you can get your screwdriver nice and deep into there, so not bad at all. And one thing I'm going to show you though, Some people don't use a lot of, or don't like to use pocket clips. Not very many, but there are some people that don't. So let me just show you this. That comes off. Oh, I need to take a little more screw off. There you go. So we do have like a cutaway there that this pocket clip sits into to index it, and that works really well. So the pocket clip doesn't slide side to side at all. Really nicely done. So there's a little bit of skeletonizing here and here, and let's take this apart. Yeah, there's a pin right here. Well, I'm playing with this for a while, and I got it looser. It wasn't this pin's fault. This liner is holding on to the, not the screw. I could take this screw out, and I will, just to show you guys. That's the T8 again. And that's not going to help this come apart. Well, maybe it will, I don't know. Yeah, well, it helps that. See, this pin is stuck. That pin is stuck in there. And it does have a shoulder on it, which means if you really wanted to, you could put it back together without the backspacer. Some people just don't like backspacers. It would look something like that without the backspacer, so it wouldn't look that great. You'd highlight that orange there, but if you wanted to, you could. You don't have to have that backspacer. But I don't like how tight that is. Let's see if I can get that loose. Okay, I got all those pieces apart. It's just not extremely precisely made. It's a budget knife. This is my first Remette knife, and I don't think Remette knives are being made at one of the higher end lines of knife making companies. Certainly not the guys at Real Steel or QSP or, WE Knives, certainly not them, and some others. It's a little roughly made, just a little roughly put together. Could be better, but it's not terrible by any stretch. And, that standoff's going to work just fine again. I'll just, put them back in there and put it back together, and at least the threads were all good. So there's that. Skeletonizing is quite good. We've got a washer in here. So you can have a hardened washer, which is much better. I don't know if these are hardened or not, but you can have a hardened washer in here. And then you've got your ceramic ball bearings on, this cheap black nylon cage. And the ball bearings are kind of small. So what do we got? 4, 8, 10 ball bearings in there. It's another sign that it's not super high end, but like I said, it's $49 before your discount. So $44.10 for this. Titanium pivot collar. And let's see, this is looks like it's a free spinning pivot. I didn't have a problem with it, but you could develop a problem with this, especially if you use thread locker. And there's no screw head here, right? So if this pivot collar is round and free spinning and you put thread locker on here, you might not be taking this thing apart without destroying this, maybe milling, filing, dremeling a line through here to turn it in a slot. So I'm going to use some VC3, but I'm not even going to use very much of that, because I don't want to lock this together so that it doesn't come back apart. So again, that's another sign that's just not well thought through, not well enough made for my preferences. Well, it's a bit later, and I forgot to put the backspacer in, but still, it's annoying because I'm having a tough time lining up that pin to get that in all the way. It sticks out just a little bit. Of course, it sticks out because I don't have the backspacer in there. I think that's the only problem. We'll see. But I got to take this blade back out again and take this back apart again. It could be just that that's the problem. So if you want to, there's a big pin. If you want to use this without a backspacer, maybe that's not that good of an idea, because I think that's going to help align that pin a little bit better. So, well, we'll see. We'll see indeed. There's a pivot collar. Let's put that back in there. And, oh, yep, that's still on there. The ball bearings are still on there. Feed that through there. There we go. Still got the washer on there. But let's see if we can get that pin lined up. There we go. That pin is in that hole properly. And now let's line up. Well, see, now the pivot pin doesn't want to come close. So these tolerances where everything is aligned isn't super accurate. Oh, see, that came back out again. And I don't even have the stop pin lined up now. It's just everything doesn't line up quite like the way I would like it to when you go to put it together. I've been playing with this for a while now. So that feels like it's right. That's in. Let's put that stop pin in. Okay, that's in all the way. So everything's in right now. Hold that in place. Keep the pressure on it. There, keep the pressure on everything while we're doing that. And where'd that other pivot collar go? Oh, it's right underneath there. There we go. Let's do the weights and measurements and all of that jazz. The weight, 122 grams, that's 4.3 ounces. Yeah, it's a little bit heavy. I didn't do the balance point before. It's right there. Not bad. Not bad. The sharpness from the factory, I got a score of 195 best. That's 3 test average out. Not bad. Could be better, but not bad. The cutting edge length, 86.0 millimeters, 3.38 inches. Blade length from the tip to the closest spot on the liners in a straight line, that's 85.2 millimeters, 3.35. The blade thickness, 2.87 millimeters, which is 0.113 of an inch. 0.125 is an eighth. So it's just a little bit under an eighth of an inch. Blade depth, it's widest this way right here at the heel, 30.6 millimeters, 1.2 inches. The thickness behind the grind, for most of the knife, it gets a little thicker here, the last little bit at the tip. Most of the knife right here is 0.37 millimeters, 14.5 thousandths of an inch thin right there. It goes up to 16 thou up here. The rest of the measurements here, the handle length, 114.8 millimeters, 4.52 inches, 4.5 inch handle, not bad. The grip area, if I go just a little bit into the blade, like to the start of the plunge here, that's almost exactly 11 centimeters. I'm going to say 4 1/3 inches. The thickness of the handle scales on the G10, the thickest spots right there, not hardware, sticking a little bit more. 13.3 millimeters, 0.524 of an inch. So just over half an inch thick, not terrible. The widest part in the handle is right here, this divider. 28.7 millimeters, 1.13 inches. When the knife is closed, the widest point is just before the thumb stud up here, right? 34.1 millimeters, 1.34 inches. And the total length of this thing is almost exactly 200 millimeters, which is 7.87 inches. So not bad. And I've done the measurements and everything else. So let me just sort of summarize what I think of this thing. Oh, I got a little bit of oil there. I did use my Gunny Glide lubricant, and it has made it a little bit smoother than it was before. I just slipped on that thumb stud again. So decent. It's decent. I really like the fact that they put those washers in there, which is a really nice touch instead of just running on the liners. So this is weird. This is a con and a pro. They've done some stuff a little bit nicer than average, but then they've done stuff worse than average. Free spinning pivot pin. I don't like that. It's not a good idea. The alignment of all the different pins that you have to put in through here, not that fond of that. It was a little tricky putting it back together, but it is fairly well made. It's just not as well as I'd like. And this pocket clip, to me, it's just a little basic. It's a little bit, gas station knife pocket clip style. Like it's not a great pocket clip. And you can adjust that. You can bend that out a little bit further. It works. It works. Action's good. Alignment's slightly off, not much. I don't like how far I have to reach over for that, but the thumb studs are nice. I'm a thumb stud guy. I really like knives with thumb studs, so I got adjusted to that quite well. Size is quite good. The grip is quite good. Just a little bit rough on the edges, a little bit hot when you're gripping it for a while. Not bad. The paracord thing through here, again, just a tiny little touch would have made it a fair bit better, but it's not a problem. I don't use lanyards much at all, so it's not a big deal. And you can use it without the backspacer. You just might have a tricky time lining up. I think I would just delete that pin. And those pins, they slide out. The stop pin is totally free floating, and this pin back here is free floating, so you can just get rid of that pin there. And this screw and the pivot screw is enough to hold the knife stable for EDC purposes. This isn't a heavy, hard use kind of knife. So for $44.10 US, $60 Canadian, is this a good buy? You could do worse. If you really like the styling of this thing, it's okay. Go ahead and buy it. It's not I'm not anti this knife. I'm just not really all that pro this knife either. What do you think? Please leave a comment down below. Let me know what you think. Do you have one? Did you maybe get the more expensive version of this thing? The Wild Species titanium frame lock. Maybe that's a whole lot better. I wouldn't be surprised if this knife company is made at the same place as Sativian is. If you've seen my reviews of some Sativian knives, I've reviewed a few of their low budget knives, and I just dislike them. They're just poorly made. I don't do high-end knives. Or rarely. I do occasionally. I rarely do more expensive knives like the titanium frame locks and stuff. I just very rarely do those. There's some guys talking about those Sativian, higher end versions, and they really like them. They're saying they're well made, and those are reviewers that I pretty much respect. And I just think their budget stuff is not up to snuff like it should be or could be, especially when there's brands out there doing things for a whole lot less money with better quality. Yeah, I'm talking about things like companies like Ganzo. Yeah. So I expected a little bit more of this, but I'm not seriously disappointed. It's a pretty decent knife. Let me know what you think. Thank you so much for watching my video. Thanks for liking, sharing, commenting, and subscribing. And remember, friends, stay safe. Don't cut into your finger. Oh, it's this one right here. Yeah, it's gotten a lot better. Still a little bit irritated here, but not much. And my other cut, totally gone. So cut towards your chum, not your thumb, or your middle finger, or your index finger, or any of the other fingers you have. Have a good one. Bye for now.